Hey guys, welcome back to F1 Hub, and today we're going to review the 2024 Hungarian Grand Prix. Now I was going to do a Channel 4 race highlights of the British Grand Prix, but Formula 1 management, you know what they're like, so I can't actually upload it. So that's unfortunate, but before we go further, please like and subscribe for all of the race reviews and predictions. So FP1 kicked off with a surprising name at the top of the timesheets. Carlos Sainz was ahead with Charles Leclerc third position. Even more surprising was how far Mercedes were off the pace. Lewis Hamilton 2 places behind his teammate George Russell and off the pace compared to him. I completely predicted Hamilton to be on pole, so let's hope he doesn't mess it up. Meanwhile, Jules Grenier also made a surprise addition to the top 5. He's been in the top 5 year before, of course, in the 2023 Hungarian Grand Prix. Qualifying, of course, that went very well, didn't it? It also went very well for Daniel Ricciardo. Let's just move swiftly on to FP2, and Lando Norris topped the session as McLaren's pace looked very strong indeed. So did Max Verstappen as he returned to the top 3 for once, with Oscar Piastri there too in the mix. Sergio Perez looked impressive, 4th place in 2 spots and 2/10 behind his teammate. Someone who wasn't looking so impressive was Charles Leclerc, with his teammate Carlos Sainz in 3rd. Charles Leclerc crushed into the barriers to end the session in FP2. When I say end the session, I mean temporarily with the red flag. The crash comes at a worse time for the Monegasque as Carlos Sainz is catching him in the World Championship. Speaking of, heroics, Jules Grenier tried to reenact, Hungary last year, except a different part of the racetrack. Lando Norris then topped FP3 too. His McLaren, the class of the field, in a McLaren won too, but the McLarens were separated by absolutely nothing, and I personally believed Piastri could really challenge for the pole. FP3 also included a Lewis Hamilton spin, trying to get out of that W15 as quickly as possible, as he struggled with pace P10 for his efforts behind his teammate George Russell in P4. Hamilton is a 9-time pole sitter here, and he will be partnering the Monegasque next year. Yeah, I did that, didn't I? Anyway, qualifying was underway, and we saw a familiar sight in the barriers, and it was the Red Bull of Max Verstappen teammate Sergio Perez, who crashed into the barriers like he always does, and what a surprise. However, someone who was a bit more of a surprise was George Russell, who was knocked out and somehow outqualified by 7-time washed world champion Lewis Hamilton, who despite the win in Silverstone is still looking slower than George Russell. Russell, however, was out in Q1 thanks to Mercedes messing it up. Mercedes never nearly messed it up again, with Lewis Hamilton only getting through by 10,000ths a second as Hülkenberg, Bottas, Albon, Sargent was good for once, and Magnussen was just slow as always. It was a surprise 5 drivers making it through, but it meant that there was the 2 RBs that would make it through as rain impacted Q3. Sargent also went off in Q2, but you'll never see that on the highlights. In the early runs, it was Norris pipping Piastri, pipping Verstappen for the pole, as Hamilton looked to build on a top 4, which if George Russell was in that car, he certainly would have. It was all a bit more anticlimactic though when the red flag was brought out thanks to Yuki Tsunoda crashing into the barriers, which effectively ended any fight for pole, which meant Lando Norris took his 3rd career pole and his 1st pole at Hungary. The rain didn't come down in the end, but it didn't stop it from becoming a very good qualifying session in Hungary. Now we go into the Grand Prix, and there's surely no way Lando Norris can find a way to mess this up. Surely he's going to win this race. Come on, McLaren, you've got to win this, just don't mess it up. God, that aged well, doesn't it? At the start, Lando Norris continued his trend of absolutely rubbish starts, losing the lead to Oscar Piastri and then losing 2nd to Max Verstappen. However, the big question off the start was whether or not that was done illegally, as Verstappen went all the way off the road, personally did the right thing by giving the place back. That's the question, if he did give the place back. Meanwhile, Hamilton had got up to 2nd for a brief second before being shuffled out to 4th. On lap 4 then, with Carlos Sainz fighting his way past fast-starting Fernando Alonso, Max Verstappen gave the place, avoiding a penalty, but it was a papaya 1-2. Nothing really happened for the next 30 laps until Oscar Piastri went off the track on lap 33. That meant he lost a hatful of time to Norris, who was closing in rather quickly. Meanwhile, Verstappen was really angry that Red Bull had put on, in his words, a rubbish strategy, and that put him behind the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc, which his aim was to make light work of. However, he was struggling in his car and had simply no grip. Anyway, that did stop him going around the outside of the Ferrari in turn number 1 and managed to make the place. And that eventually proved to be crucial, as now he was chasing down Lewis Hamilton, who's been in a late race scrap for the entire time. He had also, in Max Verstappen's case, went off the track whilst trying to pass Lewis Hamilton. Meanwhile, at the front, Lando Norris had foolishly been allowed to undercut Oscar Piastri, which led him in the lead. However, he kept increasing the gap, and the question was, as basically over the next 30 laps, there was no overtakes to watch, but anyway, we just had to watch the scrap. Meanwhile, Hamilton and Verstappen collided. Yeah, it happened. This was rather overshadowed by the fact of all of the chaos going on between Piastri and Norris. But I know the media team are going to create about 100 videos saying about who was at fault here. Personally, I do feel Hamilton was probably mostly to blame, but I don't believe there's a penalty. But then again, I do support Lewis Hamilton. Meanwhile, Oscar Piastri was finally allowed past Lando Norris, and McLaren couldn't quite foolishly destroy them a 1-2, but it has defeated any hope of a Drivers' Championship. They're supposed crucial in the Constructors. Anyway, Oscar Piastri finally won a Grand Prix, beating Lando Norris do it, and it took him only in his second year in Formula 1 to win a Grand Prix, whilst Lewis Hamilton took his 200th podium. I thought we were going to get a Piastri, and Norris was going to win with Piastri and then Verstappen at third, to make a very angry podium that would rival Multi-21 in 2013 Malaysia. So overall, that race is over. We've got the Belgian Grand Prix next weekend, which I'll be doing loads of content on, including my Belgian Grand Prix predictions soon. If you want to check that out, I would recommend you subscribe so you don't miss it, and I'll see you next time on F1 Hub.